The clinking of high heels on the polished airport floor echoed like a metronome of confidence. Maya Carter moved with a calm precision that made strangers glance twice. She wore a navy blazer, modest slacks, and carried herself with the quiet strength of a woman who had crossed storms far fiercer than the turbulence she was about to face. To anyone watching, she looked like another traveler boarding a flight to New York. To those who knew her, few did. She was something more. Maya had been raised with resilience stitched into her skin, as natural as the dark glow of her complexion. Her father had worked double shifts in Detroit's auto factories, and her mother had cleaned offices after hours, but both had instilled in her an unbreakable truth. Dignity was not given, it was carried. You held it in your chest like fire, even when others tried to snuff it out. As she stepped onto the jet bridge, the recycled air hit her face with that familiar metallic sting. Maya offered a polite nod to the boarding attendant, who barely looked up before waving her through. She walked down the narrow aisle of the aircraft, scanning the seat numbers, her ticket tucked neatly between two fingers. Row 3, Seat A. First class. Window. Perfect. She slipped her small leather carry-on into the overhead compartment, lowered herself into the plush seat, and let her eyes wander over the cabin. Crisp white headrests, champagne glasses, and the muted chatter of professionals already sending emails or closing their eyes. It was peaceful, until the peace fractured. A sharp voice sliced through the air. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you sure you're in the right seat?" Maya lifted her gaze. The flight attendant stood over her, tall, blonde, and stiff like a mannequin in her tailored uniform. Her name tag read S. Whitmore, but the real name might as well have been Entitlement. "Yes," Maya said evenly, offering her boarding pass. "Row 3, Seat A." The attendant barely glanced at it before pressing her lips together. "I think Coach is down there." She gestured to the back with a pointed finger, like a teacher scolding a child. The words weren't subtle. They dripped with the syrup of assumptions, assumptions Maya had tasted her whole life. She held her composure, but her voice was firm. "This is my seat, paid in full." The attendant gave a brittle laugh, the kind meant for an audience, though only a few heads had turned. "We've had a lot of confusion lately with upgrades. Let me help you to the back where you belong." Maya felt a storm gathering behind her ribs, but she leaned back into her seat, unbothered. "No confusion. I'm exactly where I belong." The woman's smile dropped, her eyes narrowing into something sharp and ugly. "Ma'am, if you don't move, we're going to have a problem." The silence that followed was thick. A businessman 2 rows over peered above his laptop, watching. Another passenger raised their phone slightly, as if debating whether to record. But no one spoke. They never did. Maya's jaw flexed, but she unclipped her seatbelt. She rose with a kind of grace that disguised the fury crackling in her chest. The attendant's smirk widened, mistaking compliance for defeat. She pointed again toward the back, like a queen banishing a servant. Maya didn't move in that direction. She turned left, not right, toward the cockpit. The smirk faltered. "Where do you think you're going?" the attendant snapped, stepping forward. Maya didn't answer. Her heels clicked along the aisle floor until she reached the reinforced door. With a practiced hand, she tapped in a short sequence on the security keypad, her fingers confident, precise. The door unlocked with a muted click. Gasps filled the cabin. She pushed it open. The flight attendant froze, her mouth open as though she'd seen a ghost. Maya stepped into the cockpit, the weight of the cabin stairs pressing against her back like a tidal wave, but her spine was as straight as steel. For a moment, she let the silence linger. She wanted the woman to feel every ounce of the mistake she had just made. Because Maya wasn't just a passenger. She wasn't a woman who had mistakenly wandered into first class. She was the pilot, the captain in command of the entire flight. And the very woman who had told her to go to the back where she belonged would now be forced to serve under her authority for the next 6 hours, trapped in the sky with the truth she had tried to bury. Maya adjusted her blazer, nodded at her co-pilot, and slid into the captain's seat. The headset clicked into place, her hands moving smoothly across the panels of switches, dials, and levers. This was her kingdom. The intercom crackled. Maya pressed the button, her voice carrying through the entire plane, calm and commanding. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We'll be departing shortly. Please take your seats and prepare for takeoff." Her eyes flicked to the flight attendants, still frozen in the doorway. Their gazes locked. Maya didn't need to say a word. The revenge was in the silence, in the unshakable authority of her seat. But this was only the beginning. Because Maya Carter had spent her life rising above prejudice, yet she had never forgotten the sting of every insult, every assumption, every door slammed in her face. Today wasn't just about a rude attendant. It was about a reckoning, one that would ripple through every corner of that airplane and far beyond by the time they touched down. And Maya, with the patience of a storm, was prepared to make sure of it. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the bones of every passenger as the plane taxied toward the runway. Maya Carter sat calm, steady, her hands on the yoke like an extension of her body. She had trained for years to master these machines, memorizing every checklist, every protocol. But today, her focus wasn't only on the sky ahead. It was also on the storm brewing just a few feet behind the cockpit door. The flight attendant, Whitmore, was rattled. Maya could almost feel her fidgeting through the reinforced barrier. And the truth was, this rattling pleased her. Too many times in her career, Maya had been underestimated, doubted, mocked, or outright discriminated against. Too many times she had swallowed it down for the sake of professionalism, letting it eat at her silently. But today, fate had delivered her an audience. The aircraft lifted, wheels folding in beneath them, city lights shrinking as clouds swallowed the windows. Maya guided the jet into the steady stream of sky, her voice calm as she updated passengers on altitude and weather conditions. But beneath her composure burned a heat she could no longer keep dormant. After autopilot steadied the bird, Maya turned to her co-pilot, a younger man named Jacobs. "Take the controls. I'll be right back." Jacobs nodded, eyes curious but unquestioning. Maya stood, smoothed her blazer, and opened the cockpit door. The cabin quieted like a theater curtain rising. Every eye turned toward her. Passengers who had seen her enter moments earlier now leaned forward, breath held, as if watching a drama unfold. She could feel the weight of the silence, the way people craved to see what she would do. Her gaze found Whitmore near the galley, pale and rigid. "Miss Whitmore," Maya said, her tone precise but not raised. "May I have a word?" The woman stiffened, her throat bobbing. Yes, Captain." "Captain." The word was bitter on her tongue. Maya led her toward the forward galley, out of direct view but not out of earshot. The passengers strained but couldn't help overhearing fragments. "I want you to tell me exactly what you said to me before departure," Maya asked, her voice low but sharp. Whitmore's face flushed. I was just enforcing seating protocol." "Protocol?" Maya's eyebrow lifted. "You told me to go to the back. You didn't check the manifest. You didn't consider the possibility that a black woman could occupy first class without confusion. You saw me and decided. I didn't mean, Maya cut in. You meant it. And here's what's going to happen. For the duration of this flight, you will do your job. You will treat every passenger, every one, with respect. And when we land, you will file a written report to your supervisor detailing your conduct toward me, word for word. Whitmore's lip trembled. Captain, please, do you understand me? A pause, then a reluctant nod. Good, Maya said, turning back toward the cabin. Now return to your duties. Whitmore obeyed, shoulders stiff, face red with shame. The murmurs across the plane thickened, some passengers smiling knowingly, others shaking their heads at the humiliation. But Maya didn't need their approval. She had delivered justice in the air, quiet but devastating. She returned to the cockpit, but her mind remained restless. This incident wasn't isolated. It was a symptom of a larger rot. How many times had passengers of color been treated this way when they had no power to respond? How many had been dismissed, diminished, or outright insulted with no audience, no justice? Not this time. As the flight stretched over the Atlantic, Maya began preparing a different kind of landing. She was more than a pilot. She was also a board member in the airline's Diversity and Equity Council. Few people knew it, but she had fought tooth and nail to be there. This incident would not stay in the clouds. When the aircraft descended hours later, tires kissing the runway with practiced precision, the passengers erupted in applause not for the landing, but for the woman at the controls. Maya allowed herself the smallest smile as she taxied toward the gate. Over the intercom she spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with us. Before we disembark, I'd like to say one thing. Wherever you go in life, whether it's the front of a plane or the back, remember that dignity belongs to everyone. Respect costs nothing, and it can change everything. The cabin fell into thoughtful silence, then applause again, louder this time, rolling down the aisle like thunder. Whitmore kept her head low, tears brimming but unspilled. She felt the sting of her own arrogance now exposed before hundreds of witnesses. She would write her report, yes, but she would also carry this scar forever. The day she tried to humiliate a black woman, only to discover that woman commanded the very plane she stood on. As the passengers exited, several stopped to shake her hand. One whispered, "Thank you for showing her." Another murmured, "You've inspired my daughter." A child even saluted her, eyes wide with awe. And in that moment, Maya realized revenge wasn't always about striking back. Sometimes it was about standing tall in a world that tried to shrink you, about turning someone's cruelty into a lesson for everyone watching. When she finally left the cockpit and stepped into the terminal, Maya walked with the same calm confidence she had carried on the plane. But now it was heavier, stronger, sharpened by what had transpired. The flight attendant who tried to send her to the back had, unknowingly, placed her at the very front of a larger fight, and Maya Carter was ready. For this wasn't the end of the journey. It was the takeoff.